Daniel, so
Hi.
happy to have you aboard the Transatlantic.
Thank you so much for having me.
No. Look, I'm a fond of your work. I mean, who is not? I mean, it's like, you have been doing like some
Thank
stellar
you.
work, and I mean, talking about transatlantic, crossing seas, and like, coming from a different country. You come from Peru, and it's like, I hail from Italy, so I think like we have something in common, and definitely you must come aboard the transatlantic. So let's start with the Seven Seas interview, okay?
Love it. Let's do it.
Okay, so the life of Nick Drake is like a wave that returned to sweep everything on his way. Now, Nick was a songwriter who knew nothing but rejection in his lifetime. He wrote 3 albums and got 0 love in return. Commits suicide at the age of 26. I think like 20 years flew by before some big people start calling him out and mentioning his name as their main source of inspiration. And these people were like R.E.M., The Clash. So kind of like the universe woke up and started wondering like about the music of Nick Drake. As a matter of fact, Rolling Stones magazine lists 3 of Nick Drake album, the greatest album of all time. Now, we don't write albums, but we do write ads, and we go through a creative process, and a lot of like we have to deal with a lot of rejection during our lifetime, during our career. Is there an idea that you have conceived, you fell in love with it, you really cherish and protect it, but it died, but you know that sooner or later the idea is going to resurface, and eventually, with a great vengeance, be successful?
Listen, maybe 10 years ago, I would have had like a really long list of things that I was like, I was a genius and the world didn't understand me. I think the past 10 years have taught me that because of what we do, because the thing we do it has to go through so many filters and it has to get approved through so many people. And then it needs to resonate in the real, because once you get it through all the people, that's half of the thing. Then it actually needs to work in the real world.
Right.
And now with like all of the social media, and honestly, through the past 10 years, you kind of get a reaction like this. You know, if you have like a hit song, to go back to your metaphor, or not, you know that like this, so I don't know. It may sound a little bit.
Actually,
it may not.
Do you think that this actually is a good thing or is a bad thing? The fact that we don't give enough time, that instantly it's a yes or no, instantly it's good or bad. Do you think actually this is a positive thing or not?
I don't know. I think it's like music, right? Like I'm a huge fan of a band that none of my friends know.
Okay.
And I think the same happened to advertising, at least with creatives. Like I think creatives love certain pieces of work that nobody else loves. But you're like, I love this. I love how they got there. I love all the dots that were connected. I don't care if it wins a gold or a bronze or whatever. I just love this shortlist. It's a great shortlist that in my heart will always be gold. You know what I mean? So again, going back to your thing, I think in the past 10 years, I actually understood that maybe it died for a reason, and it's happened to us. It's happened to us at the agency, and I say us because once you get to a certain level, you represent the entire creative department. So if it happened to one of your creatives, you immediately empathize with that. So in my previous job at Saatchi, it happened to us that we had one idea, and then 3 years later, it was a gold lion at Cannes. And 3 years later, and the creative just wouldn't stop texting me, being like, I told you so, we had it, it was great. And I was like, yeah, but maybe like it wasn't the right alignment of stars. Like, yes, your idea was brilliant, it is, but maybe it was the wrong client, maybe the people around it weren't the right people. So I think all you can do is try to make sure you have enough smart people around things that they will flourish. And then there's like, then there are the ideas that took a year to happen, right? Ideas that you told the client, and then a year later, you finally get them to say, oh, I see it now. I see it actually solves a problem that I have today. Let's go and make it. And so
I found like I found interesting that in certain kind of field, like in movie, in literature, there are opera and piece of work that comes out, get rejected, and then they need at least like 3-4 years, 5 years, sometimes 10 years before they come back and they are celebrated. I mean, like, One for All, like everybody loves Scarface movie, but Scarface, when it came out, and it was the screenplay was written by Oliver Stone, it didn't have a lot of success. People didn't like it much, and so like the previous movie of Oliver Stone, Salvador, was like another movie that got chopped up really bad by the critics, and so happened the same on the books. But in advertising, as you say, it's rare because I think we are dealing with like an instant like critique, an instant like validation. So if it's a no, it's gonna be a no forever, and the idea die no matter what. It's very rare that an idea die and then come back to life 5 years after from the same company. What happens is like it die and then it's like it's reborn again in another company.
Maybe
5 years after. But advertising is a universal side when it comes to this kind of phenomena.
We had this really bad commercial. This is not a good example, but we had this really bad commercial. I don't think we loved it when we shot it at the agency 3 agencies ago. Me and my partner, we were creative directors, but we thought we were making something that would resonate with people. It was like a populist commercial,
Right.
This is like a loud joke, and people will love it because it's so loud. And when it happened, nobody paid attention at all. Nobody. Like we were, and this was like Hispanic market in Texas. Right. We shot with a Mexican band, and we thought we had this like really stupid joke that people would love. Nobody did. It didn't work. And then last year, someone found this commercial on the internet and turned it into a meme. So they took out the brand and they turned it into a WhatsApp video that was traveling amongst the multicultural community. Pretty much our joke edited around and making it just a joke, remove the brand. And that's how the joke lived. And it got to like 1 million views. And we were like, well, we knew we were onto something. It maybe wasn't the right time. I've also seen like, as an immigrant, WhatsApp is the way things travel for real. When your mom shares something on WhatsApp, that's something on where a relative, a cousin, a friend shares something on WhatsApp. You're like, oh my God, this transcended because now it's traveling through WhatsApp. But I've also noticed that some of them are great commercials where people just knock off the brand. And it's like a manifesto for a brand that we've seen because we're paying attention to who says what, that sometimes finds a second life like this. So yeah, it's weird. Like, I think you want that instant gratification. You, the client, everyone wants to know that however many months you spend making something will resonate the way you planned it to resonate. But sometimes people just take it and make it their own. Like, there's something really funny happened to us. We made at Saatchi, we made a commercial with the Backstreet Boys last year for Downy, and it's again, I think it's a great fun spot to launch a new product, and we're all very happy. We all felt like, oh, this has like the vibe that it can travel through fandom real fast. We aired it on TV one night, and then it took us some time to post it on YouTube. We were figuring out a couple of things on the back end to post it on YouTube. It had already been posted millions of times on Twitter, on YouTube, on TikTok, before the brand actually put it there. So people recorded it from their TV and then put it there. And it felt good because I think that's one of those things that
there is an expression that's the English use, which is like to hit a nerve.
It hit a nerve, right?
Which I found so visually compelling, because it's true, right? Like you actually hitting a nerve. Like you, like one thing is like to punch at the body. Another thing is like to hit. When you hit a nerve, you scream, right? When something like the same thing when culture. You create something in the culture, hit a nerve, you can see this wave of like viral, whatever they call it, happening, and it's a beautiful phenomenon. You're right. You're right.
So there's something very satisfying there, and I mean, do I hope that something we did now will be rediscovered in 20 years, or even like people will be like, "Did you ever see this thing? It's part of the big ones." Yeah, of course. Do I like it when I've been on an interview for a job, or I've met someone and they said, listen, this is the one thing that's buried in your website, but this is my favorite thing you've ever done? Yes, of course. Yes, you do, because you're like, thank God you like it, because I loved it when I was making it. And maybe it didn't get the traction. It wasn't the right time. There was something else going on and it got lost. But yeah, you know.
Okay, man. Second question. Look,
let's do it.
Friendship among sailors are those kind of relationship that go stronger and stronger, because once you travel the sea, it's a hell of an experience. So you need to bond, you need to like companionship. And if you consider advertising almost like an ocean crossing, your entire career, you spend days and nights like working on projects, as you say. I mean, you left some of the most amazing people at such and such. I think you post today something on LinkedIn and pop up. I think you mentioned some of them, right? Am I correct? Anyway,
yeah.
What I want to know from you is what kind of friendship have you developed throughout this year? And if there is one person among them that truly has become a companion to you throughout this voyage, which is the ocean crossing of advertising?
I think it's more than one. I think one person would be having me pick my best friend. And I think I have like many different friends that have become that, honestly. And it's ironic, transatlantic. I think it's literally been that. Like, I think the first person that comes to mind is Andre Toledo, who ironically is now living in New York. But for the past, I'm gonna say 7 years, he was having a very successful career in Spain. We met I think through social media when I was living in Paris and he was living in Lima. We overlapped at an agency for a year in Peru. And then he went to Spain to finally go and seek out that international experience that he really wanted. And the reason he originally contacted me, and I came to the US. And throughout those 8-9 years, we just WhatsApp like friends. Like if we met each other every day and we were like, hey, how are you doing? And it's really good because I think it's ultimately someone that keeps you motivated, someone that keeps you like, especially when it's someone like at a high performance place, you kind of look at yourself and you look at your work and you go, oh, my best friend or one of my best friends is doing this other thing on this other place. How can I make the place I'm at get closer to that, you know? And
all the pride that goes into it, right? Like,
yeah, totally. I have a really good friend that has an encyclopedic knowledge of advertising in Mexico. His name is Daniel de Leon. He's like like an encyclopedia. He's like the Wikipedia of advertising, right? He's also like a huge fan of advertising. So again, it's one of those people that whenever you have a bad day, you just text them and go like, so what's new out there? And he'll just passionately tell you about this thing he saw or this thing he's working on. And then suddenly you're reinjected with like, oh yeah, we love this. Javier, who was my boss at Saatchi and the person who hired me at Saatchi, he's in Spain and he's been in Spain for a while, but I think maybe at a more of a mentor-mentee capacity, but he's been a friend that I can call whenever I'm like, shit, I'm at a crossroad. I don't know how to deal with this shit. Can I just call you and ask? And surprisingly so, he has also called me at moments where he's been like, hey, how would you deal with a situation like this, you know? And I think so. Yeah, I think I could fill an entire boat of people that I've met over the years.
That's lucky, man.
Yeah,
that's actually
yeah,
a great thing.
yeah.
You have to consider yourself lucky, because like I don't think that is a business that is prone to generate a lot of friendship, despite the romanticism that goes into it. Like, despite thinking that, like, you know, we are all a big family, I do not think that we are all a big family. I think that there is a lot of like cynical people in the business, and like mostly in America, mostly in the States, is a cutthroat business. And so if you can fill up your boats with a lot of friends, good friends that have your back, then it's good for you. It's really good for you.
I've worked on that a lot. I think I love these people, and I think it's so hard to find people who will work as hard as you, but that will love the same thing you do
Absolutely.
as much as you do, that it's like you need to invest in them. It can be passive, right?
Absolutely.
I think it
I
has
have,
to be an active, like, hey, how are you? Like,
yeah, absolutely. I have one friend that is truly like my companion, and is now, like, you know, working in Germany, and we work together. I came from Hamburg, and like, of course, like, you know, along the years, we always, like, you know, um we always, like, you know, talk to each other, and like, you know, and like, and confronted each other, and like, and share work. And so I can't certainly not feel a boat, but I can certainly have like a 2-seat boat.
like a little row boat.
A little rowboat. Okay, man. There are questions. Some region of the world have a larger tidal range. I'm talking about the difference between the low and the high tide than others, because of the differences in the shape of the ocean floor. Bridging into advertising, I want to talk about your career. You are hailing from Lima. It's certainly the Peruvian creative floor feels different than the creative floor in the States. I don't think it's just about dimension. I think it's about the composition of the creative floor.
Mm-hmm.
What's the single most important difference that you have noticed or experienced between the creativity in Peru and creativity in North America?
I'm gonna say money. Budget, I guess.
That's not a creative difference, though. I'm pack creative, but it's not related.
Okay.
I think I've noticed. I wanna let you answer. Then
Yeah.
I'm gonna add something to it.
From a creative sensitivity, I think, and this is gonna be controversial or not, I don't know, but I think the US, it has the capacity of turning anything into entertainment in a 3-act structure, like Top Gun Maverick, which is an art in itself. Can you take something and go all in and make it entertaining? But I don't mean entertaining like this is a funny joke. Right. I mean entertaining. That super serious Nike commercial is still entertainment. I think when I've been in Peru giving conversations about advertising with like whatever, with students or whatever, I always end up saying, we may think we're funny, but Peruvians are not. We need to learn how to be funny. We need to learn what the Americans have learned by watching Saturday Night Live through their entire childhood. And they have it in the back of their brain. They know how to tell a joke. And because they know how to tell a joke, they know how to tell a story. They know the 3 act, they know like set up, and then here's a punchline, and then this meets this. And it's a muscle, you know? They just know how to get there, And I think not everyone gets that same sensibility, but the world is exposed to it. Like when a movie like, I'm going to use a really horrible old example, when a movie like The Hangover comes out, or even Top Gun Maverick, right? Everyone in the world is exposed to how these stories are told. Friends, The Big Bang Theory, Breaking Bad, you pick whatever. These are all very well crafted 3-act structure traditional stories, and the world loves them, but they're made here,
Right.
you know, and people, we take it as, oh my God, like at least from Peru, me growing up watching Friends, it was like, oh my God, look at this gift. How well crafted, well produced, well written, funny thing that's almost methodical, like a clockwork thing, I've been given by cable or illegally downloading, you know, Breaking Bad. I think here they don't. It's just part of who they are. It's in their brain. This is how things are supposed to be. How come this is not as good as that? This was really good. This is what we're used to. This is a standard. And so I think that to me is like a key component, because the way the meetings are set up, the theatrics of presenting an idea to a client, the way it's structured, the way you tell a story, so much to do with what we do, that to me, it's almost like if we could translate all of this storytelling knowledge to South America, oh my God, it would be like, it would break it would break advertising, because then they will have all the tools. I think that's why Argentine people are so good at advertising, because there was a moment in which literature, even their movie industry and whatnot, it was a great culture around that. So they would just extrapolate that into advertising. And there was a time between the early 2000s all the way through the mid 2010s that you knew when a commercial was Argentine. Even last year, the World Cup Quilmes spot, it was one of the best told commercials out of the entire landscape of storytelling, because Argentines know storytelling. So I think there's that's Peru. You know, I think in Peru we lack that culture of storytelling.
You know, that to me, the only thing I would add is like probably whether or not it's coming from a small country, like, you know, coming from Italy and like into the States, passing through like, you know, London and Germany, UK and Germany. I noticed like a difference in passion. It's not just the intensity of passion, it's literally like if we can measure passion, is the dimension of passion. So just a few minutes ago, you mentioned like one of your friends being like an encyclopedia of knowledge. I think it's more common to find people, immigrants, with an encyclopedia of knowledge in advertising than to find people in America with an encyclopedia knowledge of advertising. I remember I interviewed Fernando Machado, and he has an encyclopedia of knowledge because he spent a lot of time, like, you know, reading like the annuals, and so it's like a lot of the immigrants that came to this country, they brought a different passion with different colors, and I think that's like probably what transpire and like, you know, the most, and like what stand out the most, and then it bleeds into like, you know, if you are a writer, of course that passion, it bleeds into like the phrasing and the, like, you know, not just the grammatical structure of like, you know, of your writing, but it's like the tempo of your writing. Like, you know, it doesn't matter how many years you'll be living in the States, like, you know, my tempo is the tempo dictated like by my DNA, by my culture, you know. It's like and I think like, and so goes like the humor what I learned traveling and working in different countries, like is the single most important differentiator across every country. It's not by chance that, let's face the truth, UK is the best place to do advertising because most likely they have the best humor. That's what it is.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, that's a fascinating conversation. Okay, cool. American undersea explorer Victor Vescovo has become the first person to dive into the deepest points of the Earth's 5 oceans. Now, when asked the reason behind this incredible performance, he answered, "Going to the streams, I believe, is a natural inclination of a man. Do you believe that in advertising career, while doing your own career, your own journey, we have to push the limits? we had to bring it to the extreme from time to time. And if you do believe that, what does it look like, your extreme? What is for you to push your career to the limit? Is this passage from such and such to rethink going to the limit, for instance?
Short answer is I think so. I think it's getting out of my comfort zone. I think it's getting out of like something that at one point I was like, I know what I'm doing. And so I was like, I want to not know what I'm doing, you know, in the best possible way. Like I want something that pushes me, that challenges me. I think it's a career that it's so complex what we do. It doesn't look like it. The trick is how can you make it look super simple when you know how complex it is on the back end. But I think never lose that. You know, don't lose the complexity of the job. Like and I think to your point about pushing to the extreme, I've moved so many times. I'm sure as many great creatives have. They have like moved from one country to another, being like, I want to learn more voices. I want to understand. Like, and I think you move once you understand what you need to understand. You know what I mean? You go to a place and you're like, oh, I got it, and then you're like, okay, what's next? You know, and you can call that pushing to the extreme. There's the other pushing to the extreme, which is like, how do you best the last thing you did? And if you combine both, ideally what you're doing gets better and better and better and better. And so now you're talking about like, well, how do I beat that? And that thing we just did was pretty good. So I don't know how to beat it again. So I'm back in square one of like, how do you do it? It was really fun because when I moved to Saatchi, it's a tie that happened within 9 months. And I was 34 or something like that. And it took a great team. It took a lot of people, and so I'm not taking credit for the entire campaign at all. But I remember it happening, it being successful, and me turning to who is now my wife. She also worked on it, and I was like, I think this is too soon. I needed like the impossible quest to be still there so that I can keep going against it. And little did I know, it's the other way around. Once you do something really good, how do you do something really good again? Or how do you define what good can become? And in my personal journey, I think I decided that maybe you won't get a high as that, but I think we can make it more frequent.
I think
we
I
can
agree with
actually
that.
make, yeah. But chasing frequency is hard because that means you're not trying to score one goal, you're trying to score one goal every match. And that's a tougher thing.
Yeah,
you know?
that's another like dilemma to me. Is like, is it better to have like a high peak, or is better to have like just like a small victory but consistent? Because I think like the danger with the high peak, you mentioned like tight ads, which is an incredible body of work, is like when you have those high peak, you remember for only the ads, or mostly you pretty much like associated with the ad. And then it's a ticking bomb, because then like time goes by and the ad become old, and you become older with that ad, and then people refer to you, oh yeah, the guy that did that, oh, how old was I? Oh yeah, 10 years ago. And it's like, and maybe you had a great win, but because of the relevancy, or because of the magnitude of the high peak, you now crucify to the high peak.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't only happen in advertising, it happen like in many others, like, you know, field. And like, I mean, look at Breaking Bad. Like, you know, the actor is just such an amazing actor. Like, you know, it's one of the truest actors of our generation, but it's only remembered for Breaking Bad and nothing else. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, so yeah,
which I was panicking about. I was panicking about that because I was like, no, I've been working so hard in making all of these different pieces of work that mean so much to me, that suddenly this one thing being this towering shadow over everything I've done or I will do, it sounds horrible. So I think pushing you to the extreme, going back to the question, I think gets redefined. you know, and you get to choose what that extreme is next. In my case, I put a timeline and I said, I want to have 5 years of very good work that I'm proud of in one of the most iconic brands in the world. I want 5 years. And so that became my thing, you know, and listen, it cost me, my wife will say it cost us our honeymoon. But yeah, but that's, you know, and I think rethink to me is like a great, interesting new challenge, which is like, can you build it a little bit from the ground up in a very challenging city where, you know, like the big corporations are here and the big companies and the big advertising has happened here. And listen, I think all of the elements are there to make something great, but it's going to be challenging, and that's what's exciting, you know.
Look, fifth question. Currently, 98% of international internet traffic flows under the water. A vast underwater network of cables crisscrossing the ocean make it possible to share, search, and receive information around the world at the speed of light. This doesn't just amaze me. What amazed me is that transatlantic cables were installed 150 years ago. It's not a recent thing. It's a whole thing. You think that is the future, is not the future. So look at the artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence was officially born at a workshop organized by John McCarthy in 1956. 1956. That's the official dates of birth of artificial intelligence. This means that the vision for the future begins way, way back. Is the technology paradox. Do you have a personal vision for the future of advertising?
It's a topic of the day, no? Between ChatGPT and everything. A teacher of mine in college in Peru once told me, you are a better editor than you are a creator. And that stuck with me because as I was becoming a copywriter and this and this and that, I was like, maybe I'm a better creative director. You know, maybe I will be able to. Then I really obsessed over not being that. So I became like as best of a writer as I could. And I think I'm a pretty decent copywriter. But when it came down to me actually stepping into the CD thing, I was like, oh, this is what he meant. I'm really good at organizing the thoughts of other people have and making them make sense in a certain way. And so I think that's what the role is going to evolve to. Like my romantic side wants to believe that nothing can write like a human, right? Like humans write through experience and through emotions and you know, like a podcast about artificial intelligence called it Living Intelligence, a French podcast, which I think was very sharp. There, like there's artificial intelligence and then there's living intelligence, and that sounds beautiful. But there's a part of me that is very pragmatic, and I know money will do what money will do, and then will be a moment where that South Park parody of Family Guy where they said, do you remember that? Where they were like, how does Family Guy come up with a joke? And they had like a jackpot roulette, and it was like, a monkey in Germany does this, and then that's how they did that absurd jokes. I think that may happen. It's not that far off. It's just randomizing possibilities and trying to make them make sense. And we may become curators of that. Who knows? Like, honestly, who knows? Am I panicking by that? Is that the least romantic answer in the world? Probably. Is it doing this and being like, la, 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 it's never going to happen? It's not going to help us.
No, I don't think, yeah, of course. I don't think that is the right attitude. I do think that a lot of the futuristic vision that we are seeing nowadays, they were like written, they were talked about, they were like conceived like many years ago. I mean, like, you know, the metaverse was born out of like, a book that was written like decades ago, right?
Yep.
I mean, like, if you Snow Crash, which is the book where, like, Metaphor was conceived, it truly like depict like a way of living that is like nowadays. To me, when it comes to ChatGPT, and it's like, of course I just start playing with it. So it's like I'm very curious, I'm very passionate about it. But what it seems to me understand is like, I think like what the human mind has an attitude to create things out of nothing, which meaning like to invent things, like, it doesn't give me the feeling, and maybe I'm coming from a place of completely like lack of knowledge, but it doesn't give me the feeling of like ChatGPT, something that invent things. It give me the feeling something that like scan through the universal like language and then like give you the best answer, but like by touching upon things that they already been established, like, or they already exist. But to invent something, to create something from nothing, is something that we human can do very well and can do very surprisingly well, because I think there are like, circuits in our mind that are completely unpredictable in the good and the bad. And I think that's only like a human thing. And that's why I think I'm not panicking. I'm not like, I'm just like, I'm just like on the side of the road, just waiting and just like, yeah.
I agree. And I don't want what I'm saying to feel like, oh yeah, we'll all get replaced. Not at all. What I'm saying is look at the kind of ideas that have become a little bit more popular in this period of time, right? And you will get like, we've done it at Sachi, we've done, and it's like tactical things that are just like, it's almost like the definition of an idea, two things combined that don't make as much sense. I can't think of a specific example. Let me take one that is the one that comes to mind that we didn't make, but I think it was something that was really loud a couple of months ago, which was the martini made out of cheese. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you wanted to get 100 options, 1,000 options of, can you blend cheese with the next unexpected thing? Like, yeah, the idea is, how can we position cheese in a way that's never been positioned? Here's an example, a martini made out of cheese. But if you wanted 100 of those, there will be a moment in which you would just input the prompt, cheese and unexpected whatever, and you will get 1,000 iterations of that. And then you'll be like, this gave me all the quantity that maybe a team would have taken a week to make. And then you'll be like, the good ones, the one that as humanly, emotionally, I feel drawn to are the martini, because it kind of feels right. And then this one and this one and this one. And then you end up having the four. The exploration became automated, so to speak. And then the human hunch edits.
Absolutely, I'm with you, man. But like, when I talk about inventing things, or when I talk about creating association that are completely unpredictable, I don't think that's, and this is my very personal opinion, coming again from a place where I just started learning this, so I may actually talk out of my ass. But like, when you look at, I don't know, let's say for instance, Sony Bravia bolts, like, unleashing like, millions of colored balls through the streets of San Francisco just to show the brilliance of color. That's only a human mind. And of course, like Juan Cabral can create something like that. I don't think that ChatGPT can create something like that, because there is no way that you can get. And so Jonathan Glazer, like, the surfer, like, there are certain kind of associations, certain kind of work that you look at it and the first reaction is, how the heck did you think about that?
Yes, of course.
And it's just a human thing, and that is never going to be taken away from us. That's
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. But I think you're talking about the most elevated, philosophical, conceptual, almost art-like advertising out there.
Well,
The balls is like a spectacle.
I would say
right?
the most iconic, but I wouldn't call it
Yeah.
philosophical, because at the end of the day, these are ads that run like any
Oh,
other.
no. I don't mean philosophical in the sense that they
No,
would
of
run. I
course.
feel like it's an evolution of color like no other.
Of
Let me
course.
show you color like no other.
Yeah.
It's a brand statement that's elevated and very smart, but it's also like a philosophy of a brand, right? They're not trying to nail it down to something as tangible as what I was talking about with the
Absolutely.
yeah, this is a martini made out of cheese. You know, like I think when you're talking about that, nothing against that idea for what it's worth. I think that idea was extremely successful last year, but I think that it's that level of conceptuality. I agree. I don't think ChatGPT will get there. I think on a tactical level, an idea that can get loud and an idea that needs to be like, what is the next cheese martini? Well, let's ask ChatGPT. Is it ready today? No. Can I see that in 10 years being hey, here are 10 different iterations of this same thing that you're thinking about. And then you have a breadth of iterations in which you can go, oh, let's pick this one and this one. I think the scariest thing about ChatGPT is people learn to write my experience was I started writing direct marketing letters. That's in Peru. And so you had to know how to write right, and it's not sexy and it's just craft. And it's just like, how do you say things shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter and snappier and like the economics of language. And then you add to that skill that I have my own tone of voice. This is a type of idea that I like. How do I get to this type of idea? And then you start going through that journey of like taking that craft and evolving it. I am very concerned that people will no longer go through that process, and that the craft in writing will just like,
go down. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a valid point. But I like the distinction that we made between like the highly conceptual and the tactical. I think that's actually a good distinction. There's more to talk about. Okay, look, like there are all kinds of boats that cross the ocean, cruise ships, cargo ships, both ferry, charter yachts, and sailing vessels. Each boat offers a different kind of experience. Let's bring this into our ocean, the advertising ocean. There are all kinds of boats, company, that you can choose to jump aboard and cross the advertising ocean. If you were to recommend one of these boats to someone that just started advertising, I don't look. I don't want to name. I don't want you to name a company, of course, but I would like you to tell me what kind of boat should I go on if I just want to start in advertising. Should it be like a big corporate boat? Should it be like an independent boat? Should it be like a boat of pirates and mischief? Should it be a boat of like complete like two people? What's the best way to get into the water of advertising?
A small boat in a big ocean.
A small boat in a big ocean.
Few sailors, so you become a captain faster.
That's a great advice. That's a great advice. Can you articulate to that? Like, when you say big ocean, you're talking about eventually in a big market, like, the American markets?
No, because I think, look at Publicis Milan. They have Heineken. That's a global piece of business that's doing iconic work, amazing work. And there are, I don't know how big it is, but I'm going to assume that it's not as big as one of the 700 people offices here in New York. That may be a leap on my side, but I've always I've thrived in smaller teams. I think that it allows you to grow faster. It allows you to take more responsibility. And there are times where you're in a small boat, but the client that you have has big ambitions and they have a good budget and they can do great things. And because you're in such a small boat, you're in the flow. You're just solving things and putting ideas forward, and you see them happen. There was this great Argentine CCO. He's still alive, so I don't know why I said he was Martin Mercado. And in a great conference in 2012, he said, the best cure for advertising is advertising. And I think what he meant is like, when you make something bad, what you want is to make something good really fast so that you forget about that bad thing you made.
Mhm.
And if you're in a small boat in a big ocean, you're gonna be making a lot. And you learn through making. Nobody learns through all of the ideas that never got produced, and nobody has nothing to show if you only had 3 good projects. But if you have 15 projects and you're tired in that small boat, you have so many at-bats to make it great, you know?
Yeah, of course. Last question, man. It's like, if there was a wind that blow your sail, you had to give it a name, what would the name be?
Luisa, like my daughter.
Ah, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. Everything like related to like children is beautiful.
Yeah, for sure.
Man, thank you so much, Daniel. I mean, it was like a very interesting conversation, and I wish we had more time. But of course, we can't make like a 3 hours episode.
I know. Thank you so much, my friend.
It was really good. Thank you, man. Thank you.